Okay, thank you so much for logging on to statechamps.tv. Maybe you're checking it out on Facebook or even on Twitter. Twitter has video. Tom is not on Twitter, but Twitter has video before even Tom gets on.
Trying to get me on Twitter. You know, just like everything else, it takes time.
Absolutely, it does. It's an evolving process, and Tom will get there, I promise you. Eventually. Okay, once again, we congratulate, we talked about on the television side, the Eric Dompierre case is finally at least going to be up to a vote now. What exactly has to happen, and what can backfire in this case?
Well, they opened the door to granting a waiver. Now, there has to be a vote. You know, there has to be the formality of, asking for a waiver in this situation.
And the schools grant that at the MHSA?
MHSA now has the power now because the member schools has allowed them to have the power. So they'll review the case. What has happened? They
can't possibly not let him play.
They haven't really ruled on this case because it hasn't. Now there's the avenue for which the waiver can be administered. So once the waiver is asked, then it will be granted. We hope that will be in that term when the vote comes down from the MHSA. It might have to go through the representative council. Jack Roberts, I don't believe is going to be making that call himself. They usually go to the representative council to make such a important decision like this. And what you have to feel good about is we're talking about Eric Dompierre from Ishpeming, the basketball player who turns 19 before the September 1st deadline. This is going to be for any child that has a similar situation. I think some arguments against this is that this will just open the door for many high school athletes whose birthday, 19th birthday comes before September 1st. But I think you have to take it as each individual case. And I think in this case, Eric Dompierre will be granted this waiver to play. Now, just because he's been granted this, or we hope, will be granted this waiver, doesn't necessarily mean that every child who has that 19th birthday before September 1st is going to have that waiver granted. It's going to be an individual case basis and reviewed upon that way.
And I believe the waiver's language was very specific in stating that. It was well crafted.
Yeah, I thought it was too, and I talked to Dean Dompierre, the father of Eric, and we had the discussion. Did you like the way it was worded? Because he was, hesitant he was hesitant to give his approval, so to speak, until he saw it. And he thought it was worded rather well, and it wouldn't just let the open door policy of anybody who wishes to have their child play under or play under those conditions. So we'll see. This is kind of the first step and stuff, so we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, speaking of doors opening and someone walking through it, whether it was voluntary or not, we have to kind of figure this out. But De La Salle, long-time De La Salle soccer coach, Thayer Mukhtar, excuse me.
His nickname's Terry.
Yeah, I know, Coach. So, good guy. But anyway, he's been there 30 years. He's got 5 state titles. Had a great year last year. And somehow there wasn't a meeting of the minds when it came to De La Salle and Mukhtar moving forward.
This is an ongoing story, and I'm still trying to, how should I say, put the pieces of the puzzle together. And first of all, I had spoken with Brian Kelly, the AD at De La Salle, and he told me what the situation was, and that they were working with Mukhtar about this situation. And it does come, I know it's kind of a trite saying to some extent that it was a philosophical differences, but in truth, from what I'm gathering, the information I have, it is philosophical differences. It really doesn't have anything to do with wins and losses on why they let Mukhtar go.
That's obvious.
Yeah, obviously he's had so much success, and that's not the point. And one thing, Lauren, we have to look at that we as journalists often say, it really isn't about wins and losses and how coaches coach their kids. You want them to teach life values. You want them to grow as persons. And if they lose out on the athletic field or in the gymnasium or wherever, that's not really important. The battles won in the locker room and on the practice fields are the ones that really are the victories that you want won. So, you know, we can't be double talking here.
They always call when I'm busy.
We can't, you know, talk out of both sides of our mouth, I guess what I'm trying to say. You can't say, well, we don't really care about wins and losses. It's how they teach the kids. And then maybe in this case, well, you know, Mukhtar's winning so many games, you got to overlook that. No, I think you know, and the administrators at De La Salle, I'm sure, looked at that. Now, outside looking in, you say, boy, you know, what did Coach Mukhtar do wrong? Personally, I do not know. I was not privy to that information. That is, you know, the De La Salle administrators, between them and Mukhtar. And another thing I'd like to say, I hope Terry lands someplace. I mean, he's a great soccer coach, obviously. Obviously, he's not going to coach at De La Salle next year. I just hope he lands someplace and lends his expertise to another school.
Yeah, no question. He's got, I'm sure, a lot still to give. And maybe sometimes we just need a fresh start. Sometimes that's both from a school's perspective and from a coach's perspective. He's been there a long time.
Well, you have to look at us, too. I think everybody is scrutinized. So whether by your boss, my boss, you know, everybody's performance is scrutinized, as well it should be. And obviously there's
day-to-day things, how you handle things day-to-day.
Right, and it's also week-to-week and month-to-month. You know, progress reports. You know, we talked. Let's say, I'm just using this as an example. Let's say you talked with your boss 6 months ago about some things that he wasn't happy with, and you work on those, and hopefully you come to some kind of resolution and you improve as an employee. So perhaps something like this took place at De La Salle between Mukhtar. I know, talking to Kelly, that, you know, this is not something that, boom, you know, they made a decision, you know, on one day, and the next day they, you know, asked for his dismissal. This has been an ongoing thing, and, you know, and I talked to Brian. I know there were some things he told me, and I said I would not repeat them. That's between him and I. And there are certain things that I just won't say, so.
Well, you have to say
it's professional courtesy.
Absolutely.
And, you know, Brian's not only somebody I work with, I consider Brian a friend. I've known him for years.
Yes, absolutely. And we've known Brian for years.
He's a good guy.
He's a good baseball coach, too.
Yeah, he was. He won some state titles there.
Okay, you mentioned the word progress, and this is where we're going to wrap up our OT this week. You have some ideas for progress regarding pre-districting in baseball.
And mostly baseball. Softball is one thing, because softball pitchers, they have, you know, they just pitch and pitch and pitch. Where in pre-district baseball, okay, you play on Tuesday, and you either have your district semifinals and finals, usually on a Saturday or on a Friday, like in some cases. You pitch your ace on Tuesday, let's say he goes 9 innings. It's unlikely that you would definitely not play him on that Friday. Saturday, perhaps, because you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days rest. That's kind of pushing it. Most of the time, you like to have them 4 days rest. My idea, to make a short story long, is to put that pre-district, and I've said this before, and it comes up in the case of Northville. Northville, for the 8th straight year, has drawn the pre-district. Highly unfair when you consider the ramifications of pitching your ace and, you know, your rotation being somewhat dismantled. Play that pre-district on a Thursday before that Tuesday. That takes that, you know, waiting period well out of it. That pitcher you throw on that Thursday is definitely going to be ready 8 or 9 days after that. So it's a simple thing. I think some people would argue, no, you can't put it on that date. We're still playing our regular season games, and that might inhibit our chances of winning a conference or league title if we're playing for it. So be it. If you got stuck with playing a pre-district and your draw came up, you're going to have to make the call between playing your pitching your number one, perhaps in a league championship game, or in the pre-district that determines, you know, perhaps how far you go in the state tournament. I think, you know, this happens in Lansing. There's a big tournament in Lansing every year, and these coaches have to decide whether they're going to throw their aces, their number 2, their number 3, and perhaps in winning that tournament in Lansing, which is a big deal in Lansing. It's been going on for years and years. It's a very prestigious thing, and then you have to decide between pitching your pitcher there or saving him for the state tournament. So these things happen. I think they should move that pre-district back to Thursday. I talked to John Kostriva of Northville the other day. He says, you know, we talked about this for a couple of weeks now. He says he thinks that there's the balls rolling in that direction where some changes might be made.
What's your opinion, baseball fans? You think pre-district should be moved back to Thursday? You can send us an email, asktom@statechamps.tv. If you're watching this on Facebook, comment right there on the Facebook page. You're watching on Twitter, comment right there on Twitter. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and of course, we'll discuss them in the future. That is another edition of the OT. getting into the state championship stuff, so we'll talk about everything going on next week.